Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing another watercolor speed paint, and I am painting Moana. So I am really late with this because I saw Moana a few months ago, but I'm finally doing a fan out for it and showing it to you guys, and I just firstly want to say that I loved Moana so much. I'm going to try to make this spoiler free because I know a lot of people haven't seen it yet because it's not like out on Netflix or anything, but I loved Moana and I'm going to talk about it more. But first I do quickly want to go over the materials I used. I used my handy dandy trusty Grumbacher watercolor pans. These are my favorite watercolors to use, and I really love them a lot. I'm using a different paper for this painting. I'm using Arch's watercolor paper cold pressed, and I don't think I like it. It's really different from any other paper I used, and I actually live streamed this. And if you were part of that live stream, then you will know how much I was struggling with this paper, just because it's very different from the paper I was using before. But yeah, I also used a red mechanical pencil for the sketching, and then I used a brown mechanical pencil toward the end to do some outlining and detailing. So yes, I loved Moana. It's definitely one of my all-time favorites. My all-time favorite princess movie will always be Rapunzel, and my favorite Disney movie is always going to be Lilo and Stitch. But Moana was really, really good, and it actually kind of blew me away with how much I loved it. First of all, the music in it was fantastic. Lin-Manuel Miranda did all the music for this movie, and for those of you who don't know, he also did all the music for Hamilton, and he's basically just a stellar, crazy, amazing singer-songwriter person. So the music for this movie was some of my favorite in any Disney movie ever. I was just totally obsessed with it, and I could not stop listening to the soundtrack for quite a few weeks after I saw the movie. It was just really good. And then the storyline itself was just, it hit me right in the heart. I wasn't really knowing what to expect going into this movie because I felt like they did a good job about keeping most of the plot secret, which was really surprising because I wasn't expecting anything going into the movie, and I was just really blown away with how much it was so good. It was beautiful. Oh, and speaking of beautiful, the animation was insane. All of the water and all of the tropical fish inside the water. There's this one scene in the beginning of the movie. This is non-spoiler, by the way, but Moana walks into the ocean, and the ocean like parts around her, and you can like see into the water. And that is the first time I cried during this movie. I think I cried 3 or 4 different times during this movie, but that was the first time I cried because the animation literally just made me feel so many emotions. So yes, if you haven't already seen Moana, please do yourself a favor and go see it because, like I said, it was just really, really good, and I feel so many emotions thinking about it. And yes, it's definitely up there with one of my favorite Disney movies. And I know I say that about like every Disney movie, but this one especially because it made me cry more than once, and not every Disney movie does that. So yeah. Like I said, I did have some trouble with this paper. I'm usually used to using paper that's thinner and more of a mixed media. That's kind of the paper I normally use, and this is like professional grade watercolor paper, and it was really textured, which I did like. I really like textured paper, but it also stayed wet for a very long time, which is not what I'm used to, and I think that was the thing that I struggled with most, because I like each of my paint layers to dry completely before I go on to add like more colors or depth or shadows or anything like that, and I found that this paper would take at least 3 times as long to dry as my normal paper. So I would think it was dry, and then I'd go on to add more paint, and it'd kind of all get muddy. So that's why the coloring in this is not my personal favorite out of the more recent things I've done. I tried to work with the paper as best as I could, and I'm still happy with the result. One good thing about this paper is it does make all the colors look really pigmented, which is nice. But then I also had some trouble painting Moana's skin. As you guys know, Moana has this really beautiful dark skin tone. It's like a red-brown color that I really wanted to portray in this painting. But I'm still honestly not the best at drawing darker skin tones. It's definitely a weak point in my art because I tend to draw many pale-skinned people. And that's one of the goals I want to do, is learn how to paint a wider variety of skin tones. So it was good to practice with Moana, but I did struggle with it just a little bit because I felt like every time I would color something else, like when I would color the hair or the shirt, I would think that the skin was still too light. So then I would go back in and cover the whole skin again with the darker color. And I feel like that made the whole thing a bit muddier than I would have liked. But I also, like I said, I'm still happy with it, and I do like how it came out. Moana's hair especially, which is what I'm drawing now, that was a lot of fun to draw. She doesn't have like the stereotypical curly or wavy hair. Her hair is kind of like this huge just mass of like tight curls. So I'm not used to drawing that, and that was a lot of fun to play around and experiment with, and I'm really happy with how her hair came out. So right now what I'm doing is I'm going back in with that pencil like I mentioned earlier, and I like to do this for a couple of reasons. One, because I really don't like how black line art looks with watercolor. I feel like it's much too harsh compared to watercolor, which is such a soft medium. And I also use the color pencil to add some value where I couldn't get quite with the watercolor. You can see that especially right here with the hair. I will just add a little bit of shading where I feel like I should. And then if I need to, I will also go back on top of that with more watercolors after everything is done. But this makes it so I can get some tighter details that I can't get with watercolor either. And I can also just really fine-tune some things, especially in the facial features and the hair, which is where I mostly use it. But then I also use the pencil to outline everything to make everything else look more cohesive. So yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you haven't seen Moana, please go do so. I do believe it'll be on Netflix shortly, hopefully. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with me for yet another speed paint, and I will see you guys in my next one.